The galaxy was vast, but peace was fragile. Humanity, a young and ambitious species, found itself teetering on the edge of extinction. For decades, Earth had relied on its ingenuity and technology to survive in a universe dominated by older, more advanced civilizations. But now, with resources dwindling and neighboring empires eyeing their planet hungrily, humanity's leaders knew they needed allies, powerful ones. Enter the Scifi Empire, an ancient civilization known for their shimmering bioluminescent skin, towering crystalline cities, and unparalleled mastery over genetic engineering. To humans, the Scifi were both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Their ships glided through space like liquid light, silent yet imposing. Their culture was steeped in tradition, honor, and pride, a stark contrast to humanity's often chaotic and rebellious nature. Still, desperation made strange bedfellows, and Earth's leaders saw no other choice but to seek an alliance with these enigmatic beings. It all began at a grand summit aboard the Aetherian, a massive orbital station that served as neutral ground between human and Scifi territories. Delegates from both sides gathered in a chamber illuminated by soft, pulsating lights, courtesy of the Scifi's natural glow. Tensions crackled in the air as representatives exchanged cautious words. On one side sat Admiral Carter Hayes, a grizzled veteran of interstellar diplomacy, his face lined with worry but resolute in purpose. Across from him loomed Emperor Valen, ruler of the Scifi Empire, his elongated frame draped in robes that seemed to ripple like water under the dim light. The negotiations were tense, fraught with mistrust. Humans feared the Scifi would see them as weak and exploit their vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, some Scifi viewed humanity as reckless upstarts unworthy of their time or protection. Yet amidst this delicate dance of politics, a shocking revelation threatened to shatter any chance of cooperation. Princess Lizura, the youngest daughter of Emperor Valen, stood quietly beside her father throughout the proceedings. Her ethereal beauty captivated many in the room. Her translucent skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the emotions coursing beneath her calm exterior. But behind her regal composure lay a deep sorrow, one she had kept hidden for years. It was whispered among the Scifi elite that Lizura suffered from infertility, a condition so rare in their genetically perfected society that it was considered shameful. For a princess destined to carry forward the imperial bloodline, such a flaw was unacceptable. When news of Lizura's condition leaked during the summit, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Some human delegates gasped, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Among the Scifi, murmurs of disapproval rippled through the delegation. Emperor Valen's expression hardened, his glowing eyes narrowing imperceptibly. He did not address the issue directly, but it hung over the room like a storm cloud, casting doubt on whether the alliance could proceed. Desperate to salvage the situation, Admiral Hayes proposed a bold solution. "Your Majesty," he said, addressing Emperor Valen with careful deference, "we humans may lack your mastery of genetics, but we excel in adaptability and innovation. Allow us to offer you our finest scientist, Dr. Elias Kane, as a gesture of goodwill. Perhaps together, we can find a way to help Princess Lizura." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the Emperor, who seemed to weigh the proposal carefully. After what felt like an eternity, he gave a curt nod. "Very well," he said, his voice low and resonant. "But know this, failure will not be tolerated." And so, Dr. Elias Kane, an unassuming man in his early 40s with sharp features and a mind sharper still, was thrust into the heart of alien intrigue. Little did anyone realize that this decision would set into motion events far greater than anyone could have imagined. As Elias prepared to leave Earth for the Scifi homeworld, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something far beyond mere scientific collaboration. Somewhere, deep within the glistening spires of the Scifi palace, Princess Lizura awaited him, and with her, the uncertain future of two civilizations. For now, hope remained fragile, like a single thread holding together two vastly different worlds. But even the smallest spark has the potential to ignite change, or burn everything to ashes. Dr. Elias Kane stepped off the sleek, silver shuttle onto the shimmering surface of Ziltherion, the Ziltheri homeworld. The air was cool and carried a faint metallic tang, but it was breathable, thanks to advanced atmospheric processors that hummed softly in the distance. Before him stretched an alien city unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering crystalline spires rose into the sky, their surfaces refracting light into dazzling rainbows. Streets flowed like rivers of liquid glass, pulsating with energy as Ziltheri citizens moved gracefully through the pathways. It was breathtaking, yet unnerving, a reminder of how far humanity still had to go. Elias adjusted the strap of his satchel, which contained his research equipment, and took a deep breath. He reminded himself why he was here, to help Princess Lizira, whose infertility had become a symbol of both shame and hope. For the Ziltheri, her condition represented imperfection within their genetically pristine society. For humanity, solving this problem could secure their fragile alliance with one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. But for Elias, it was something more personal, an opportunity to prove that science transcended boundaries, even those between species. A royal escort awaited him at the landing platform. 2 Ziltheri guards, clad in armor that seemed to ripple like water, led him toward a hovering transport vehicle. They spoke little, their glowing eyes assessing him with quiet curiosity. As they glided through the city, Elias marveled at the harmony between technology and nature. Gardens floated midair, suspended by invisible forces, while fountains emitted streams of luminescent liquid that danced in intricate patterns. Yet beneath the beauty lay an undercurrent of tension. He noticed stares from passing Ziltheri, some curious, others hostile. Word of his arrival had spread quickly, and not everyone welcomed a human scientist meddling in their affairs. The palace loomed ahead, its structure resembling a mountain carved entirely from crystal. Inside, the grandeur only intensified. Walls shimmered with embedded lights, casting soft hues across expansive halls. Servants moved silently, their movements precise and deliberate. Finally, Elias was ushered into a private chamber where Princess Lizira awaited him. She stood near a large window overlooking the city, her translucent skin glowing faintly in the sunlight. Her presence commanded attention, not because of her royal status, but because of the quiet strength she exuded despite her circumstances. When she turned to face him, Elias felt a pang of empathy. Her eyes, though luminous, held a depth of sadness that no amount of regal composure could mask. "Dr. Kane," she said, her voice melodic yet tinged with uncertainty. "I understand you are here to assist me." "Yes, Your Highness," Elias replied, bowing slightly out of respect. "It is an honor to meet you. I assure you I will do everything in my power to help." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lizira gestured for him to sit at a nearby table adorned with delicate instruments and data tablets. Over the next few hours, they delved into her medical history, discussing everything from genetic anomalies to potential treatments. What struck Elias most was her intelligence. She wasn't just a passive participant. She asked insightful questions and challenged his assumptions. Their conversations flowed naturally, blending science with philosophy as they pondered the implications of their work. As days turned into weeks, a bond began to form between them. Though separated by species and culture, they found common ground in their shared desire for peace and understanding. During breaks in their research, they talked about their worlds. Lizira describing the intricacies of Ziltheri society, and Elias sharing stories of Earth's struggles and triumphs. Slowly, the walls of mistrust between them crumbled. But outside their secluded lab, tensions simmered. Whispers of dissent echoed through the palace corridors. Some Ziltheri nobles viewed Elias's presence as an affront to their traditions, believing humans were unworthy of aiding their princess. Others saw his efforts as a threat, fearing what might happen if the treatment succeeded, or worse, failed. Emperor Valon remained distant, his disapproval palpable during rare encounters. Yet despite the growing hostility, Elias pressed on, driven by determination. and a newfound sense of purpose. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Lizera invited Elias to join her on a balcony overlooking the city. The sky was painted in shades of violet and gold as twin moons rose above the horizon. For a while, they simply stood in silence, taking in the view. "You must think us foolish," Lizera said finally, breaking the quiet, "to place so much importance on perfection." Elias shook his head. "No, Your Highness. Perfection is an illusion. What matters is how we overcome our flaws. That's what makes us strong." His words lingered in the air, resonating deeply with Lizera. In that moment, she realized that perhaps her condition wasn't a curse. It was a chance to bridge two worlds, to show her people that strength came not from perfection, but from resilience. Back in the lab, progress was slow but steady. Elias combined human ingenuity with Zilthari biology, creating innovative solutions that pushed the boundaries of both sciences. Each breakthrough brought them closer to their goal, but also heightened the stakes. If they succeeded, it would change everything, for better or worse. And somewhere in the shadows of the palace, unseen forces plotted against them, determined to ensure that humanity's influence would never take root in the heart of the Zilthari Empire. Weeks turned into months as Dr. Elias Kane and Princess Lizera worked tirelessly in the crystalline confines of the royal laboratory. The room was a blend of human ingenuity and Zilthari elegance. Holographic displays floated above sleek workstations, while delicate instruments hummed softly, their designs inspired by both species. Every day brought new challenges, setbacks, and glimmers of hope. But today felt different. Today, Elias sensed they were on the verge of something extraordinary. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, during what had been an otherwise ordinary session. Elias had been analyzing a series of genetic sequences, comparing Lizera's DNA with samples from Earth's most adaptable organisms. He combined fragments of human resilience, a trait encoded in certain extremophiles capable of surviving harsh environments, with the precision of Zilthari genetics. It was risky, uncharted territory, but it held promise. As he integrated these elements into a treatment formula, a sudden spike in data caught his attention. "Lizera," Elias said, his voice tinged with excitement. "Look at this." She leaned over his shoulder, her glowing eyes scanning the holographic projections. For a moment, silence hung between them as she processed the implications. Then, a flicker of hope brightened her expression. "This could work," she whispered, almost afraid to believe it. "It might restore my fertility." Elias nodded, though caution tempered his enthusiasm. "We need to test it further, of course. But if the simulations are correct, this treatment has the potential to repair the anomalies in your genetic structure without compromising your unique biology." For the first time since their collaboration began, Lizera allowed herself to feel a spark of optimism. She had spent years burdened by shame and isolation, convinced that her condition made her unworthy of her royal title. Now, for the first time, she dared to imagine a future where she could fulfill her duty, not just to her people, but to herself. Over the next few days, they conducted rigorous trials, refining the treatment until it reached perfection. Finally, the moment arrived when they administered the solution. Lizera sat calmly as Elias injected the serum into her bloodstream. His hand steadied despite the weight of the moment. They monitored her vitals closely, watching for any adverse reactions. Hours passed, then days. Slowly but surely, the results confirmed what they had hoped. Lizera's body responded positively. Her reproductive system, once dormant, began to function normally. News of the success spread like wildfire through the palace. Servants whispered excitedly and in hushed tones, while nobles exchanged astonished glances. When Emperor Valon received the report, his reaction was mixed. On one hand, he couldn't deny the significance of the achievement. It restored his daughter's honor and secured the imperial bloodline. On the other hand, the fact that a human had solved the problem gnawed at him. His pride bristled at the thought of owing such a debt to an outsider. Meanwhile, the rest of the empire erupted in celebration. Holographic broadcasts announced the miraculous cure, hailing it as a triumph of interspecies cooperation. Across Iltherion, citizens marveled at the possibilities this alliance might bring. Some even began to see humans in a new light, no longer as inferior beings, but as partners worthy of respect. However, not everyone shared this sentiment. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Lizura invited Elias to join her on a balcony overlooking the city. The sky was painted in shades of violet and gold as twin moons rose above the horizon. For a while, they simply stood in silence, taking in the view. "You must think us foolish," Lizura said finally, breaking the quiet, "to place so much importance on perfection." Elias shook his head. "No, Your Highness. Perfection is an illusion. What matters is how we overcome our flaws. That's what makes us strong." His words lingered in the air, resonating deeply with Lizura. In that moment, she realized that perhaps her condition wasn't a curse. It was a chance to bridge two worlds, to show her people that strength came not from perfection, but from resilience. Back in the lab, progress was slow but steady. Elias combined human ingenuity with Ziltheri biology, creating innovative solutions that pushed the boundaries of both sciences. Each breakthrough brought them closer to their goal, but also heightened the stakes. If they succeeded, it would change everything, for better or worse. And somewhere in the shadows of the palace, unseen forces plotted against them, determined to ensure that humanity's influence would never take root in the heart of the Ziltheri Empire. Weeks turned into months as Dr. Elias Kane and Princess Lizura worked tirelessly in the crystalline confines of the royal laboratory. The room was a blend of human ingenuity and Ziltheri elegance. Holographic displays floated above sleek workstations, while delicate instruments hummed softly, their designs inspired by both species. Every day brought new challenges, setbacks, and glimmers of hope. But today felt different. Today, Elias sensed they were on the verge of something extraordinary. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, during what had been an otherwise ordinary session. Elias had been analyzing a series of genetic sequences, comparing Lizura's DNA with samples from Earth's most adaptable organisms. He combined fragments of human resilience, a trait encoded in certain extremophiles capable of surviving harsh environments, with the precision of Ziltheri genetics. It was risky, uncharted territory, but it held promise. As he integrated these elements into a treatment formula, a sudden spike in data caught his attention. "Lizura," Elias said, his voice tinged with excitement. "Look at this." She leaned over his shoulder, her glowing eyes scanning the holographic projections. For a moment, silence hung between them as she processed the implications. Then, a flicker of hope brightened her expression. "This could work," she whispered, almost afraid to believe it. "It might restore my fertility." Elias nodded, though caution tempered his enthusiasm. "We need to test it further, of course. But if the simulations are correct, this treatment has the potential to repair the anomalies in your genetic structure without compromising your unique biology." For the first time since their collaboration began, Lizura allowed herself to feel a spark of optimism. She had spent years burdened by shame and isolation, convinced that her condition made her unworthy of her royal title. Now, for the first time, she dared to imagine a future where she could fulfill her duty, not just to her people, but to herself. Over the next few days, they conducted rigorous trials, refining the treatment until it reached perfection. Finally, the moment arrived when they administered the solution. Lizura sat calmly as Elias injected the serum into her bloodstream. His hand steadied despite the weight of the moment. They monitored her vitals closely, watching for any adverse reactions. Hours passed, then days. Slowly but surely, the results confirmed what they had hoped. Lizura's body responded positively. Her reproductive system, once dormant, began to function normally. News of the success spread like wildfire through the palace. Servants whispered excitedly in hushed tones, while nobles exchanged astonished glances. When Emperor Valon received the report, his reaction was mixed. On one hand, he couldn't deny the significance of the achievement. It restored his daughter's honor and secured the imperial bloodline. On the other hand, the fact that a human had solved the problem gnawed at him. His pride bristled at the thought of owing such a debt to an outsider. Meanwhile, the rest of the empire erupted in celebration. Holographic broadcasts announced the miraculous cure, hailing it as a triumph of interspecies cooperation. Across Ziltherion, citizens marveled at the possibilities this alliance might bring. Some even began to see humans in a new light, no longer as inferior beings, but as partners worthy of respect. However, not everyone shared this sentiment. In the shadowy corners of the palace, dissent brewed. A faction of traditionalists viewed the treatment as an affront to Ziltheri purity. They argued that relying on human science undermined their cultural identity. Led by Lord Kaler, a high-ranking noble with ambitions of his own, these dissenters plotted behind closed doors. "We cannot allow this abomination to stand," Kaler hissed during a clandestine meeting. "A human has tainted our princess's lineage. If she bears a child now, who is to say it will be truly Ziltheri? This so-called miracle is nothing more than contamination." His words resonated with those who feared change. Together, they vowed to undermine the alliance and discredit both Lizera and Elias. Their plan involved spreading rumors, sowing doubt among the populace, and finding evidence to prove that the treatment had altered Lizera's DNA beyond recognition. Unaware of the brewing storm, Elias and Lizera reveled in their success. For the first time in months, laughter echoed through the lab. Lizera felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She thanked Elias repeatedly, her gratitude genuine and heartfelt. "You've given me more than just a chance to have children," she told him one evening as they reviewed the final data. "You've shown me that imperfections can lead to greatness, that we don't have to fear differences. We can embrace them." Elias smiled, touched by her words. "I think you're the one teaching me, Your Highness. You've shown incredible courage throughout all of this. I'm honored to have played a part in your journey." Their bond had deepened over the months, transcending professional boundaries. Though neither dared to name it aloud, there was an undeniable connection between them, a mutual respect and understanding that went beyond mere gratitude or admiration. Yet even as they celebrated their victory, subtle signs hinted at the challenges ahead. One afternoon, while walking through the palace gardens, Lizera noticed a servant hastily averting her gaze. Another time, Elias overheard fragments of conversation suggesting unease about the treatment's origins. These small moments weighed on them, reminders that not everyone shared their optimism. Still, they pressed forward, determined to make the most of their achievement. Little did they know, the true test of their partnership and their resilience was yet to come. Somewhere in the depths of the palace, dark forces gathered strength, ready to strike at the heart of their fragile alliance. And when they did, Elias and Lizera would face a choice: retreat into safety or fight for a future neither of them could have imagined possible. The initial wave of celebration began to wane as whispers of unease spread throughout the Ziltheri Empire. While many marveled at the miraculous breakthrough that restored Princess Lizera's fertility, others grew suspicious. The treatment, a fusion of human ingenuity and Ziltheri biology, was seen by some as a betrayal of their species' purity. For centuries, the Ziltheri had prided themselves on their genetic perfection, a hallmark of their civilization. Now, a human scientist stood at the center of one of their most sacred achievements. Lord Kaler, the leader of the dissenting faction, seized upon this discontent. He was a cunning nobleman with ambitions far greater than his current station. To him, the alliance with humanity represented not only a threat to Ziltheri traditions, but also an opportunity to rise in power. If he could discredit Dr. Elias Kane and cast doubt on the legitimacy of Lizera's recovery, he might sway public opinion against the Emperor's decision to collaborate with humans, and position himself as a champion of Zilthera pride. Kaler's campaign began subtly. At court gatherings, he questioned whether the treatment had truly healed Lizera, or merely masked her condition temporarily. How can we trust something created by outsiders? He asked during a council meeting, his voice dripping with skepticism. Humans are unpredictable. Their science is crude compared to ours. What if this so-called cure causes unforeseen consequences? His words struck a chord with some members of the imperial court, particularly those who already harbored resentment toward humanity. Others remained silent, unwilling to challenge Emperor Valon openly, but privately agreeing with Kaler's concerns. Rumors began to circulate among the populace, fueled by carefully planted misinformation. Some claimed that Elias had tampered with Lizura's DNA, making her less Ziltheri and more human. Others whispered that any child she bore would be an abomination, a hybrid unworthy of the throne. Elias noticed the shift almost immediately. Servants who had once greeted him warmly now avoided eye contact. Guards stationed outside the lab seemed more watchful, their glowing eyes following his every move. Even within the palace walls, tension crackled like static electricity. During meals in the grand dining hall, conversations around him grew quieter whenever he entered the room. It wasn't hard to guess why. The murmurs about him were everywhere. Lizura, too, felt the weight of these suspicions. Though publicly celebrated as a symbol of hope, she sensed the undercurrents of distrust. Nobles who had once fawned over her now spoke cautiously, their smiles strained. She tried to brush it off, focusing instead on preparing for the possibility of motherhood. But deep down, she couldn't ignore the gnawing fear that her newfound happiness might be fleeting. One evening, after another long day in the lab, Elias joined Lizura on the same balcony where they often shared quiet moments. The twin moons bathed the city below in soft silver light, casting long shadows across the crystalline spires. For a while, neither spoke, each lost in their thoughts. Finally, Lizura broke the silence. "Do you feel it too?" she asked softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "The way things have changed." Elias nodded, leaning against the railing. "It's hard not to notice. People are uneasy. They don't trust me, or what we've done." She turned to face him, her luminous eyes filled with determination. "Then we must prove them wrong. We must show them that this alliance isn't just about curing my condition. It's about building a better future for both our peoples." Her words bolstered his resolve, but Elias knew it wouldn't be easy. The doubts spreading through the empire weren't based solely on logic. They stemmed from fear and prejudice, forces far harder to combat. Still, he refused to give up. Not when so much was at stake. Their resolve was tested further when news reached the palace that protests had erupted in several cities. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, chanting slogans demanding transparency about Lizura's treatment. Some even called for Elias's expulsion from Ziltherion. The emperor, pressured by advisors and public unrest, summoned Elias to a private audience. When Elias arrived, Valon's expression was unreadable. His towering frame loomed over the smaller human, exuding authority, and barely contained frustration. "Dr. Kane," the emperor began, his voice low and measured. "Your work has brought us results no one thought possible. Yet it seems your presence here has become problematic. My people are divided, and I cannot allow this discord to continue unchecked." Elias swallowed hard, steeling himself for whatever came next. "Your Majesty, I understand the concerns of your people, but this treatment represents progress, a step toward unity between our species. If given the chance, I believe we can overcome this mistrust." Valon studied him for a moment before responding. "Perhaps, but until then, you will remain under close observation. Any misstep, Dr. Kane, and I will have no choice but to act decisively." As Elias left the chamber, he realized the stakes had risen dramatically. He was no longer just a scientist working to solve a problem. He was now a pawn in a political game with consequences far beyond his control. And yet, despite the mounting pressure, he couldn't abandon the mission, or the bond he had formed with Lizura. Meanwhile, Lizura faced her own challenges. As rumors swirled about the nature of her unborn child, she became increasingly isolated. Her father distanced himself, consumed by the political fallout. Even trusted friends hesitated to associate with her, fearing guilt by association. But through it all, she held on to one truth. The life growing inside her was a miracle, a testament to resilience and hope. Together, Elias and Lizura vowed to weather the storm. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but they also understood that their partnership symbolized something greater than themselves. In a galaxy torn apart by division, they had the chance to forge a new path, one built on trust, understanding, and the courage to embrace change. The tension within the Ziltheri Empire reached a boiling point as factions clashed over Princess Lizura's pregnancy. What had started as whispers of suspicion soon escalated into open rebellion, dividing not only the imperial court, but also the citizens of Ziltherion. The Empire, once united under Emperor Valon's iron rule, now teetered on the brink of chaos. On one side stood the traditionalists, led by Lord Kaler, who viewed Lizura's condition and the involvement of humanity as an existential threat to Ziltheri purity. Their rhetoric grew louder and more inflammatory with each passing day. Holographic broadcasts aired fiery speeches calling for the rejection of alien contamination and the restoration of Ziltheri supremacy. Crowds gathered in city squares, chanting slogans like "Pure Blood, Pure Future," their glowing eyes reflecting anger and fear. On the other side emerged a surprising movement, a coalition of rebels inspired by Lizura's story of overcoming adversity. These were ordinary Ziltheri from the lower classes, long oppressed by the rigid caste system enforced by the nobility. To them, Lizura represented a symbol of hope, someone who had faced shame and hardship yet risen above it with courage. Her partnership with Elias Kane, a human scientist, showed that collaboration across differences could lead to greatness. They began organizing underground meetings, spreading messages of unity and reform through encrypted channels. Elias watched these developments unfold with growing unease. Despite Emperor Valon's assurance that he would remain safe under observation, Elias felt the walls closing in around him. Guards followed his every move, and surveillance drones hovered conspicuously near the lab. Even simple tasks, like visiting the palace gardens or attending meetings with Lizura, required approval from increasingly paranoid officials. Yet what troubled him most was the realization that his presence had become a lightning rod for conflict. He couldn't help but wonder if leaving would ease the strain. But abandoning Lizura wasn't an option. She needed him now more than ever. For Lizura, the weight of expectation was crushing. As her pregnancy progressed, she became both a figurehead and a target. Nobles whispered behind closed doors about whether the child she carried was truly Ziltheri or something else entirely. Some even questioned her right to inherit the throne, arguing that her tainted bloodline disqualified her from leadership. Public appearances grew rare. Instead, she spent most of her time in secluded chambers, guarded by loyal servants and protected by layers of security protocols. But isolation didn't shield her from the turmoil brewing outside. News of uprisings reached her daily, protests turning violent, rebel groups clashing with imperial forces, cities descending into chaos. It pained her to see her people divided, especially when she believed the alliance with humanity could bring them closer together. Determined to act, she secretly reached out to the rebel leaders, offering words of encouragement and support. Through coded transmissions, she urged them to fight for change, not destruction. "You are right to demand justice," she told them during one clandestine communication. "Our society has been flawed for too long, but violence will only breed more suffering. Let us build bridges, not walls." Her message resonated deeply with the rebels, who saw her as a champion of their cause. Inspired by her words, they shifted their focus from outright rebellion to peaceful resistance, organizing strikes and demonstrations aimed at exposing corruption within the nobility. Their efforts gained traction, drawing supporters from all walks of life, including some disillusioned members of the upper class. Meanwhile, Emperor Valon found himself caught between opposing forces. On one hand, he relied on the loyalty of the traditionalists to maintain his grip on power. On the other, he recognized the dangers of alienating the growing number of dissenters. His frustration mounted as advisors presented conflicting solutions. Some urged him to crush the rebellion with force, while others suggested negotiating with the rebels to restore stability. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Valon ordered an investigation into the origins of Lizera's unborn child. A team of geneticists, handpicked by Kaler, was tasked with analyzing samples taken during routine checkups. The Emperor hoped this would silence the rumors and prove once and for all that the Heir was pure Scifi. But Kaler had ulterior motives. Using his influence, he ensured the results would be manipulated to cast doubt on the child's legitimacy. When the findings were announced, they sent shockwaves through the Empire. According to the report, the infant's DNA contained traces of human genetics, enough to suggest it was a hybrid. Outrage erupted among the traditionalists, who demanded immediate action against Lizera and Elias. Rebel factions, however, dismissed the claims as propaganda, accusing Kaler of fabricating evidence to further his agenda. Caught in the crossfire, Elias and Lizera prepared for the worst. Imperial forces tightened their grip on the palace, cutting off communication with the outside world. Supplies dwindled, and tensions ran high among the staff. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, a plan began to take shape. With the help of trusted allies, including a few sympathetic guards and rebel operatives, they devised a way to smuggle Lizera to safety should the situation escalate further. One evening, as the palace buzzed with activity, Elias approached Lizera in her private chambers. Her normally radiant skin had dulled slightly, weighed down by stress and exhaustion. Still, her eyes burned with determination. "We can't stay here forever," Elias said quietly, ensuring no one overheard. "If things get worse, we need to be ready." Lizera nodded, placing a protective hand over her abdomen. "I know, but I won't run unless I have to. This child is proof that our two worlds can coexist. If we leave now, it will only confirm their fears." Elias hesitated, torn between admiration for her resolve and concern for her safety. Before he could respond, an urgent knock sounded at the door. A servant entered, breathless and pale. "Your Highness, Dr. Kane, the Emperor requests your presence immediately." As they followed the servant through the labyrinthine halls of the palace, Elias and Lizera exchanged a glance. Whatever awaited them, they knew one thing for certain: the fate of their fragile alliance, and perhaps the future of both species, hung precariously in the balance. The summons to Emperor Valon's private chambers came at the worst possible time. Tensions in the palace had reached a fever pitch, with Imperial guards stationed at every corner and drones patrolling the halls. The air was thick with unease, as if the entire structure were holding its breath. When Elias and Lizera entered the Emperor's opulent quarters, they found him seated on a throne-like chair made of shimmering crystal, his glowing eyes sharp and unyielding. Beside him stood Lord Kaler, his expression smug, holding a data tablet that no doubt contained the manipulated genetic report. "Lizera," Valon began, his voice heavy with authority. "Your condition has brought shame upon this family. And now, it seems, your unborn child may bring further disgrace." He gestured toward Kaler, who stepped forward and presented the tablet. "These findings suggest that the hair you carry is not purely Scifi." Lizera stiffened, her translucent skin flickering faintly with emotion. She met her father's gaze without flinching. "Father, these results are false. Dr. Kane and I have worked tirelessly to ensure the treatment preserved my identity as a Scifi. This child is a symbol of unity, a bridge between our people and humanity." Kaler sneered, cutting her off. "A bridge, or an abomination? Your Highness, we cannot allow such impurity to taint the royal bloodline. If this child is born, it will divide our empire further and weaken us all." Elias clenched his fists but forced himself to remain calm. "Your Majesty," he interjected, addressing the Emperor directly, "I understand your concerns, But the science speaks for itself. The treatment was designed to restore Princess Lizira's fertility while respecting her biology. Any claims otherwise are based on misinformation. Valon leaned back in his seat, his expression unreadable. For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the faint hum of energy coursing through the walls. Finally, he spoke, his tone cold and final. Enough. Until this matter is resolved, both of you are confined to the palace. You will await my decision. As they left the chamber, escorted by guards, Elias could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. The Emperor's words offered little comfort. It was clear that Kaler's influence had swayed him. Outside the palace, chaos continued to unfold. Rebel factions clashed with imperial forces in the streets, their cries for justice echoing through the crystalline spires. Inside, the atmosphere grew increasingly suffocating. Days passed in tense anticipation. Lizira remained resolute, spending much of her time preparing for the birth despite the mounting pressure. Her due date approached rapidly, and with each passing hour, the stakes grew higher. Meanwhile, Elias worked tirelessly behind the scenes, gathering evidence to refute Kaler's claims. With the help of loyal servants and rebel operatives, he uncovered proof that the genetic report had been tampered with, a revelation that could expose Kaler's treachery. One fateful evening, as sunset bathed the city in hues of gold and violet, labor pains struck Lizira. The palace erupted into controlled chaos as medical staff rushed to her side. Elias stayed close, offering reassurance and support. Though trained as a scientist rather than a doctor, he refused to leave her during this critical moment. Together, they faced the unknown, drawing strength from their shared determination. Hours later, amidst the glow of holographic monitors and the soft hum of machinery, a cry pierced the air, a sound so pure and powerful that it seemed to resonate throughout the palace. Lizira held her newborn child, tears streaming down her face as she gazed upon the tiny being in her arms. The infant's skin shimmered faintly, a blend of Ziltheri luminescence and human vitality. Its eyes, wide and curious, reflected the light like twin stars. "It's perfect," Lizira whispered, her voice trembling with awe. She looked up at Elias, who stood nearby, equally moved. "Our child. A miracle." News of the birth spread quickly, though conflicting reports emerged almost immediately. While some hailed the infant as a symbol of hope and unity, others condemned it as unnatural. In the midst of this division, Kaler seized the opportunity to escalate tensions. Rallying his supporters, he led a contingent of imperial forces toward the palace, determined to seize control of the child and eliminate any threat to Ziltheri purity. The rebels, however, were ready. Anticipating such a move, they launched a counteroffensive, flooding the palace grounds with supporters armed with non-lethal weapons and shields. Clashes broke out in the corridors, the sounds of struggle reverberating through the crystalline halls. Amid the chaos, Elias and Lizira remained hidden in a secure chamber, guarded by a small team of loyalists. "We can't stay here forever," Elias said urgently, pacing the room. "If Kaler gets his hands on the baby, he'll use it to destroy everything we've worked for." Lizira nodded, cradling her child protectively. "Then we must act quickly. We need to show the truth, not just about the baby, but about Kaler's lies." With the help of their allies, they devised a daring plan. Using encrypted channels, they broadcast live footage of the newborn, highlighting its unmistakably Ziltheri features alongside undeniable signs of human adaptability. They also released the evidence proving Kaler's manipulation of the genetic report. Within minutes, the transmission reached every corner of the empire, sparking outrage among those who had been misled. The tide turned swiftly. Citizens who had once doubted Lizira now rallied to her side, demanding justice against Kaler and his cohorts. Even some members of the imperial court began to question their loyalty to the deceitful nobleman. As the battle raged on, Kaler's forces wavered, their resolve crumbling under the weight of public condemnation. Finally, Emperor Valon appeared, his towering frame cutting through the chaos. His expression was one of quiet fury as he confronted Kaler directly. "You have betrayed this empire," he declared, his voice ringing with authority. "For your crimes, you will answer." With Kaler arrested and his faction disbanded, order began to restore itself. Though scars remained, the rebellion had planted seeds of change within the empire. And at the heart of it all lay a newborn child, a beacon of hope for two species struggling to find common ground. As dawn broke over Ziltherion, casting light on its shimmering spires, Lizera and Elias stood together, gazing out at the city they had fought to protect. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, they allowed themselves to believe in a brighter future, one where differences weren't feared but celebrated. The aftermath of the rebellion left Ziltherion forever changed. The once pristine crystalline spires bore faint scars from the conflict, some cracked, others scorched. But these imperfections only added character to the city. For the first time in generations, the empire felt alive, its people buzzing with a mix of hope and uncertainty. The birth of Princess Lizera's child had ignited a transformation that no one could have predicted, forcing both rulers and citizens to confront long-held beliefs about identity, unity, and progress. In the days following Kaler's arrest, Emperor Valon retreated to his private chambers, grappling with the consequences of his decisions. Though he had always prided himself on his strength and authority, recent events had exposed vulnerabilities he couldn't ignore. His rigid adherence to tradition had nearly cost him everything, not just his daughter's trust, but also the stability of his empire. As he sat alone, staring at holographic projections of the newborn Heir, he realized something profound. Perfection wasn't about maintaining an unblemished facade. It was about adapting and growing stronger through challenges. Summoning Lizera and Elias to his quarters, Valon surprised them with an unexpected gesture. "I owe you both an apology," he began, his voice unusually soft. "My pride blinded me to what truly matters, the future of our people. Your child is not a symbol of impurity, as some have claimed, but of resilience and possibility." Lizera exchanged a glance with Elias before responding. "Father, we don't seek apologies. We seek understanding. This child represents more than just a royal heir. It proves that differences can be strengths, not weaknesses." Valon nodded solemnly. "Then let us begin anew. From this day forward, our empire will embrace change, not out of fear, but out of hope." True to his word, the emperor announced sweeping reforms aimed at dismantling the oppressive caste system that had divided Ziltheri society for centuries. Nobles who resisted were reminded of Kaler's downfall, while those who supported the changes were rewarded with positions of influence. The lower classes, inspired by Lizera's courage, found their voices louder than ever, demanding equality and representation. Slowly but surely, the empire began to heal. Meanwhile, the newborn Heir became a focal point for unity. Named Solarin, a combination of Sol, representing humanity's sun, and Erin, meaning light in the ancient Ziltheri tongue. The child embodied the promise of a brighter future. Its dual heritage was celebrated rather than shunned, with festivals held across the empire to honor its arrival. Holographic displays showed images of Solarin glowing softly in Lizera's arms, a living testament to the power of collaboration. Elias remained by Lizera's side, now seen not merely as a scientist, but as a partner in shaping this new era. Together, they worked tirelessly to strengthen ties between humans and Ziltheri, fostering projects that combined the best of both civilizations. Medical advancements developed during Lizera's treatment were shared openly, benefiting countless lives. Trade routes expanded, cultural exchanges flourished, and joint expeditions explored uncharted regions of the galaxy. Yet even amid the celebrations, challenges persisted. Some factions still clung to old prejudices, whispering of resistance in shadowy corners. But Lizera and Elias refused to let fear dictate their path. They traveled across the empire, addressing crowds and meeting individuals whose lives had been touched by the alliance. Their message was simple yet powerful. Unity required effort, patience, and trust, but the rewards far outweighed the risks. One evening, as the twin moons bathed the palace gardens in silver light, Lizera and Elias stood together, watching Solarin sleep peacefully in a cradle crafted from translucent crystal. The infant stirred slightly, its tiny hand reaching out as if grasping for the stars. "You know," Elias said quietly, breaking the serene silence, "when I first came here, I thought this mission was about science, about solving a problem. But now, I see it was about something much bigger."